And now I'm in a situation where I have one making money, second one just a little bit of money, and shops 3 and 4 losing money. And so it then becomes like really a big survival mode for a good while. And I paused for a few years before location, not a few years, but a couple years before location number 5 came, because if number 5 wasn't making money out of the gate, the whole thing was coming down.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
Today's guest started with $100K on credit cards, a single auto body shop, and a dream that barely stretched beyond paying the bills. Fast forward, and Matt Ebert is now the founder and CEO of Crash Champions, running over 600 collision repair locations across 38 states. But this isn't a story about overnight success. It's all about gut-level perseverance, sacrifice, and thinking bigger, especially when the odds are stacked against you. Matt shares how he strapped his way to 8 shops before ever taking on private equity, how he managed survival mode cash flow, and what he's learned about scaling culture, leadership, and team alignment inside a massive, fast-growing organization. This one's loaded with wisdom for anyone running a $1 to $20 million a year business and wondering, what's the next move? Let's dive in and talk with Matt. Hey, Matt, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How you doing?
I'm good, Tyler. Glad to talk to you this morning.
Yeah, glad that you're here. Hey, so just love to start out learning a little bit about you. First would be professionally. What do you do professionally?
Very good. So Crash Champions is the company that I founded, and we're collision repair company.
Awesome. And you're very humble because it's like 600 plus locations, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, today it is 650 shops across 38 states. So we've grown pretty rapidly in the last 5 years or so.
I think if that was me, Matt, I don't think there would be a sentence I could complete without saying that.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's definitely bigger than I ever would have dreamed when I first started. When you first start, you're just trying to make $1, right? And trying to get the first customer to come in the door. And so from kind of those early days to where it is today, it's been amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then part 2, I'd love to just learn a tiny bit about you personally. Anything that you can share, a tidbit, something that you're into on a personal level?
Sure. I still work way too much, especially if you ask my wife, and I really like what we're doing. So most of my time is in running the company, but also then family. So what gets cut out is maybe hobbies or not much time to golf or anything like that. But wife, and I have 2 young kids. My son is 8 and my daughter is 6. So Sundays usually consist of things that the kids love and somewhat make daddy miserable, because it'll be some activity that's not cool for an adult, but it's great to watch the kids have a great time.
I get it. Hey, one thing where I want to start, I'm really excited to learn about your journey. Before I go there is one thing. How did you get the name Crash Champions? Because it's such a cool name. I mean, in terms of what you guys do and how it just immediately says, these guys are great at what they do. How did you get there with that name?
Great question. Yeah, it really comes down to hired a couple firms to help us, with looking at hundreds of suggestions. But really what it came down to after making them go back to the drawing board a bunch of times was seeing what we were all about, which was really the concept of being a hero for our customers, helping them in a time of need. And so the logo is a cape. People sometimes think it's a road or whatever, but it's a cape. So the concept was, and we still do it today. We give capes to kids of our customers because what child doesn't want a cape?
Yep.
And so Crash Champions, kind of collision repair heroes, was the concept and the name. And what I loved about it beyond the concept was the name to me was memorable because it's just different. So in our industry, unfortunately, people don't deal with us that often. And surveys have shown that go out a year later after you had your car fixed and you probably don't remember the name. The consumers on average don't remember the name of the place they had it fixed. They'll know where the building is and the name of the person they dealt with, but as far as the name of the company, it's really 1% is all that remember the name of it. And so for an attempt to have a name that's maybe more rememberable, Crash Champions resonated well with me when I heard it.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
And so for an attempt to have a name that's maybe more rememberable, Crash Champions resonated well with me when I heard it.
Yeah, it's a great brand. And the cape was cool too. I thought that's what that was. I wasn't sure, but it kind of has like the whole theme is awesome. And I love the capes going to kids. That even makes it even more cool.
Now, of course, as we look to the future and 20 years from now, when cars are more self-driving and have less and less accidents, and we have to do other things besides fix collisions, I don't know how well the name's going to work a couple of decades from now, but at a decade ago when we came up with it, it was great.
Well, the good news is, from what I read this study, and this is kind of a dated study, but it was about autonomous vehicles, and as that change from human to autonomous, it'll phase in. The study said it'd be like 10 or 15 years. They actually predicted accidents for a while would go up because humans aren't really going to be comfortable always knowing what autonomous vehicles will do in terms of their consistency. And so it actually, for a while, it theoretically, I don't know, who knows if this is true, but it could cause things to go up. So maybe there'll be a pinch there that your business goes up.
Yeah, that's really the environment right now. And revenue will go up because the vehicles are so much more complicated. So from a revenue standpoint, there's definitely a growing market, but overall, long term, it take, like you said, 15 to 20 years kind of evolving for significant reductions to come along, but we'll adapt.
Yeah. So, hey, I want to kind of go back to shop number one. I want to put you in that mindset. What was that like? Like, what were you thinking when you started that? What were your goals at that time? Want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, great. Unfortunately, the way I see the world today, when I look back at then, it was 99 when my partner and I first started it. So when I look back at what I was thinking then, I think the honest answer is not much. I was, in my 20s and trying to make a living. I had an entrepreneurial spirit that was kind of driven even from early childhood. The way I saw to make money was to, do things like go around town and mow grass and collect money for the services I could perform. So I think the entrepreneurial part of me was always there. I learned the collision repair trade because I wrecked my car as a teenager. And then, wanting to go into business, I ended up opening the first shop with a gentleman. I was managing his body shop at the time. And so we did the first one together. And the goals were really just to make a profit and to own my own business. And so it stayed that one shop for quite a while, all the way from 99 to 2014, because he was 20 years older than me, so wasn't ready to retire. And so it kind of took that long before he gave me a number and I started growing. So unfortunately, it was just really creating a business of something that I knew and liked. I loved cars. I thought cars were cool. And that's about as deep a thought as it honestly was.
That's cool though. So take that to the next level. So you have a partner, and I think you said, if I got timing right, 2014 is when the next shop, you took your second shop. Is that correct? And is that still under the partnership, or are you at that point kind of spreading your wings and going, hey, I can do my own on my own type of thing?
Yeah, that was post the partnership. So he was kind of tired of the industry, the way it was transforming. He missed the way it operated in the 80s, and again, just not ready to retire though. Mm-hmm. So he didn't want to grow the business, and he was in control, had the controlling interest. So it was really waited for him to be ready to sell his part to me. And then I was watching the industry consolidate around me. It's kind of crazy. Back then I thought I was missing all the opportunity in the world, and now I realize how much opportunity there still is out there. But I felt a little bit like kind of caged and ready to go. So it went pretty rapidly in 2014, and within a couple of years, got to 4 or 5 locations.
Wow. A lot of times business owners that second location is their stumbling block. Like they've got one location that's doing well. They really have trouble getting to the second one. If they get to the second one, a lot of times, or even third, they're kind of losing money, or they have one location that's doing well, two that are losing. How did you kind of get over that hump where, you're just amassing locations without, I'm assuming, losing money, or at least overall making money?
Yeah, it just like not unlike most people's stories, I imagine. It was tough. Cash flow was a problem. There was, you took a I don't know, maybe a 50,000 a year salary, but you didn't cash the checks anyway. You're basically every week juggling, moving money between bank accounts to make sure payroll checks don't bounce. It was tight. Exactly what you said. You have the first location, of course, that's continuing on, so it's making money. Then usually what you do is you move like your one of your best people out of the first location and put them in the second one. So you do hinder the first one a little bit because you just move talent out of it.
Right.
So all of those things are real. They do affect the business. I had in the picture of having the 4 locations, one of them was opening from scratch. The second one actually was one that I bought and thought I could bring more revenue to. So I had a couple accounts that told me they would send me some work there. So the second one was kind of a fortunate one because I was able to take what I bought and improve it relatively quickly because I had revenue streams that I could add to the location, which was great. The third one though was starting from scratch, and the fourth one was kind of a pop fly out of nowhere where the landlords were taking over what was really an unprofitable business, and they basically wanted to recoup some of their money, and for I think it was 100 and something thousand dollars. I took over that location, but it had like zero revenue. And now I'm in a situation where I have one making money, second one just a little bit of money, and shops 3 and 4 losing money. And so it then becomes like really a big survival mode for a good while. And I paused for a few years before location, not a few years, but a couple years before location number 5 came, because if number 5 wasn't making money out of the gate, the whole thing was coming down.
Right.
Yeah. So cash flow was always constrained. One thing that I always did though is all the money went back into the business. I didn't go buy toys. I didn't, so like for whatever, and it's not like I was, starving either. But I didn't live an excessive lifestyle. I didn't invest in any toys outside of the business. Things were relatively modest so that all the money could support the business.
Yeah, I had many, many years ago when I used to have my CPA firm. I had a client. It was about a $5 million auto repair shop, and $5 million a year. And it's interesting that you should say about the buying the toys, because this guy hadn't paid any of his payroll taxes, way behind. Business was really pretty much losing money. But back then, this doesn't sound like a lot, but back then this was a lot. He was paying $10,000 a month in rent in a very affluent area of the Bay Area, living the high life, driving these 2 gorgeous cars, which in fairness to him probably were fixed up. So it wasn't like he went out and paid $100,000 for cars, but they were really nice cars. He could have sold them and make good money on them. But anyway, my point is, a lot of times you see this, and this industry was kind of like yours, so that's why I'm bringing it up, is he was living way beyond his means. And the poor guy, he had the IRS coming in about the payroll taxes. He wasn't paying his personal taxes. And it was just a constant thing. And I think one thing that you just really bring up is that you sacrificed. It sounds like you sacrificed a lot for a long period of time. And by sacrifice, I mean trying to live beyond your means at that time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you have to know the environment of your business from a cash flow perspective too. The collision repair business is a very low margin business, so there's
Yeah.
not, I mean, you're talking high single digit profitability. So there's not a lot of money from a percentage perspective, but there are benefits to the business in that, it's insurance paid, so you get paid really quickly. So, my go-to move, which the vendors from those early days would tell you, was, the vendors would wait, and the people, employees would get paid and vendors would wait. So I definitely upset a few vendors along the way, but I always communicated. They at least wasn't dodging phone calls
Right.
and hiding from them, but I definitely stretched vendors beyond what they would have told you that they were comfortable with.
Yeah.
But that's just they don't want to operate that way, but survival is what you got to survive to live the next day. And that was kind of the in this industry what I was able to do when cash flow was tight.
How much back then were you looking at the numbers? Was it more of just really kind of cash and bank and you kind of had it all in your head? Or how much were you kind of managing the numbers, the business by the numbers?
Yeah, compared to today, it was terrible, right?
Right.
And I see it because a lot of growing our business was through M&A, and we're just in the trade. It's we know how to fix cars and take care of customers, and we know if there's money in the bank, and we know if there's not. But beyond that, like what the exact profitability is and stuff, that all comes in time. What I did have the advantage of is my partner. Remember, I was managing one of his shops when we went to open the other one, so I at least had like a comparison point of looking at his couple other shops to mine, and that at least let me compare like what do they do compared to what does mine do. And then in the industry there's paint suppliers and companies like that would put together 20 groups where where you're meeting with your peers from other parts of the country, aren't really competitors, where you can kind of compare numbers. So fortunately for me in the industry, there was an environment of kind of educating around what numbers should look like. And because it's an insurance pay really business, the insurance companies demand really good kind of KPI performance and good cost controls because they don't want to overpay, that's for sure. And so those two things kind of drove a business acumen that I didn't really necessarily come out of school book smart and know how to do. And necessarily didn't know what I was learning in the time. I was just trying to please an account, and I was just trying to look better than the guy next to me. That's really how basic it was. Now, obviously, didn't get to hear without learning what good looks like, what levers to push. Now the company's so big, you're quartile managing, and anybody in the bottom quartile knows they can't hang out there, and you're trying to. The game has changed to now you're trying to shrink the bandwidth between the best and the worst and keep everything moving up and to the right at the same time. And you do that kind of through comparisons of where everybody should be, where you are, and again, you don't want to hang at the bottom very long.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you're going there because that brings in my kind of next phase here. So you go back, you pause a little bit, then you get to shop 5. When do you start to gain steam where it's like, I believe if I've got my data right, your private equity stepped in, but you were already multi-hundred locations at that point. Is that correct?
No, I took on a PE partner in 2019, and it was going from 8 to 11 locations at the time of their entry. So I really did all the growth through SBA financing
Okay.
and got to the 8 shops through combination of seller financing, SBA financing, and some like advances from a couple vendors. So those were kind of my moves that I maxed out of doing it on my own because I came from really nothing. I started with 100 grand on credit cards to open my first business.
Dude, I love this story. It gives me the chills.
So my risk tolerance is pretty high. I guess when you got nothing to lose, like it's easy to have a high risk tolerance as well. But what really happened in 2018, I had 3 great businesses that I wanted to buy. I had LOIs with the sellers, and I maxed out the SBA. So now I needed to find out how to pay for them. I could borrow money from the banks all day long on real estate as long as I have the down payment, but the business part of it is what the SBA was for. So I really went to a referral from my accounts to a small investment banker here in Chicago, and was looking for just really mezzanine debt to buy those 3 locations. I had just gotten rid of my partner 4 years ago or so, wasn't really looking for another partner. They encouraged me to be open-minded, talk to some private equity and see what they had to offer. And so weighing the decisions along with the market dynamics and where the industry was headed led to that decision to bring in private equity. But yeah, it wasn't multiple locations. It was only again, 8 going to 11 at the time they came in.
And at that point, you give up a little bit of equity, or do they take control at that 8 to 11 stage?
We had all those options. I ended up going with the option of they took control by 1%.
Okay.
And the way that ended up working out is really a decision of not just buying those 3 shops, but a decision to go much bigger. They were wanting in the industry really, really badly. So they were also talking to another multi-shop owner actually in Southern California. And they had 23 shops, and their desire in talking to private equity was different than mine. I was looking for money to grow, and I wasn't looking to take money out of the business. I wanted to access more money so we could grow more. They were where they wanted to not run the business anymore. They wanted to take majority equity off the table. So in conversations about should we put them both together, that allowed me then to basically them to come in, me to keep my money in or reinvest, from the kind of one time span between one transaction and the other, reinvest the money right back in. And so ended up with it, basically at their entry point, it was a 49-51 setup. Then we brought in 2 other owners, and I got diluted a little more, but it's really math of it's a much smaller percentage of a much bigger owner of a much bigger company. And then of course I was taking on the CEO role. So for me, really how the company was ran was going to be up to me. I was used to having a partner for all those years anyway. So I viewed the PE group as just another partner. And of course, the 2 gentlemen that owned the Pacific Elite company in SoCal, I viewed them, as partners, and they're friends, now today. So the partnership dynamic wasn't an issue for me because I kind of had grown up in that.
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
The partnership dynamic wasn't an issue for me because I kind of had grown up in that.
There wasn't a little bit of fear though about the partnership I get, but the control part of it. Was there any part of you like, hey, they had majority, majority say basically, so they could pretty much say anything. Was that a little bit of pause, or was it like, no, I trust these guys?
Well, I would say don't ever trust them.
Okay, fair enough.
And I don't mean like it has an adverse relationship at all, but what you should know is they're going to do what's best for them.
Right.
They're going to look out for their fund more than they look out for your business. And so you just know that. I viewed it as my company is a tool for them to grow their investment, and they are a tool for my company to grow. And if you keep that relationship in that perspective, I think it's in a pretty good spot. My biggest fear is because I was only in my mid 40s, so I didn't want to be done. And so my biggest fear was they come in and invest and then sell it to a much bigger strategic operator, and then I don't have a company to run anymore, and I got some money. And so that's what I didn't trust, or I had hesitancy over. Remember, everything else, I was basically, if you look at what might be considered a negative on private equity, the biggest negative is they put a lot of debt on the business. Well, remember, I started with just $100,000 on credit cards. I started with maxing out SBA loans. I started with borrowing from sellers and vendors. So too much debt on the business didn't compute with me anyway. It wasn't fear of mine anyway. It's kind of how I operated. Unfortunately, now that it's much bigger, I am concerned about the debt level on the business. But those early days, they weren't going to be any more aggressive than I would have been. And I actually was much more aggressive than them in wanting to grow and grow fast. So my biggest fear again was that I would in a few years have them sell to a strategic, and I wouldn't have a business to run anymore. And basically I just got comfortable with look, if if I just kick butt at this, if I learn what I need to learn, if I position the company to be valuable, I need to create enough value where someone would pay the same amount of money that a strategic would, is how I went about it. And that was the way I was going to control that outcome. So I set about to make myself, my management team, and the company just as valuable to another PE investor as the company would be to a strategic. And then the understanding was if its dollars are equal, they would honor my wishes and not sell to a strategic. So at least I had the target that I had to hit, and I was prepared to take the challenge.
Yeah, you're kind of the perfect profile too. I'm going to be talking with a guy. The company name is Kelso Industries, or a private equity group, and they've acquired something. I don't know. I think it's like 30 different MEP companies. These are like HVAC type electrical plumbing companies for commercial. And he was really, when I did a pre-interview with him, he was really straight up. He's like, I'm looking for a profile of someone that's mid 40s, doesn't want to cash out, wants to be part of something bigger, and has that type of mentality. So you were like, you were probably like heaven for them, because you were just getting you're probably your first win, maybe your second at most in terms, and you probably were jacked up about the growth potential. So it's kind of a really good fit.
Yeah, I would invest in me.
Yeah.
So
I think I'd bet on you too.
yeah, I think the honest challenge looking back on it and even looking ahead is because I just grew up in the business. I didn't go to college. I didn't know what I didn't know. I had to be committed to growing myself, to learning more. I couldn't rely on what got me to there, and I still can't rely on what got me to here. So I think, the fellow entrepreneurs out there, like the biggest thing is you're gonna have to, you don't know how that's gonna look or why or what your weaknesses might be, but you will have weaknesses and you will have to develop new strengths, and you'll have to learn things and do things that might be different than how you operated before. And I was all eager for that. Not everybody is the only thing. So that would be like what I would say is contributed to being successful. It's the willingness to learn and grow. If you kind of think you already are good and don't need to keep advancing, it's probably not going to be a good environment for you, I imagine.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And then you brought up you didn't know what you didn't know. This is something I hear so commonly as business owners are growing, and they get to a point where like, I just don't know what I don't know, and I'm kind of worried that I'm missing something. Did that ever hit you? And it was that part of your reason in terms of maybe taking on private equity, because there was like this unknown of, man, how big can I get? And I'm stretching out debt and all these other things. It'll be great if I could kind of just have someone else worrying about that part, and I can worry about growing the business.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I would say a little bit oblivious, but eager to learn, and a little bit overconfidence, which I don't think is bad.
Right.
I would say that what I had was, and I think all entrepreneurs would have it, is this desire to always bring in somebody smarter than me. Like, if I'm the smartest person in the room, we're in trouble. So the great thing about entrepreneurs, you're really not worried about being fired, because it's usually your company, right? And so you're not trying to climb a corporate ladder or audition for your next job. You're just trying to make your company awesome. And so the advantage that I had was a willingness to bring in people who had been there, done that, seen it, to come and join my team. And I was fortunate enough to be able to sell some of them on the vision, because I look back now as an example, when we did put this together with that company in Southern California, it was jumping from 13 shops to 39 shops. And we recruited our CFO. And at that time, our CFO was coming from a company where he was running a few hundred. Now that I'm 600 and some shops, I know how kind of a leap of faith that was for him and how ridiculous I might have sounded trying to get him to come and run 40 shops instead of 300. But I was able to pitch him on, he saw something in me. He saw something in the opportunity that I wouldn't have even known, because I thought, why wouldn't you want to join me? Why do you want to stay where you are? Now that I've been much bigger, I can tell you there's a million reasons why he wouldn't want to take a risk and go to a smaller company. So, but being able to attract that talent around me was definitely key, because I learned from them. Now it's interesting because I've kind of kept learning, and now it's to where they learn stuff. Of course, they learned from me all along too, but now I keep trying to find new things and bring it to them. But there was probably day one where they were much more advanced than I was.
That's amazing. And so now it kind of just fast forwarding here, you're now 600 locations. Now it's the same private equity that's taken you all the way. You've been with them all the way through 600. Was there a new entity that stepped in?
Yeah, brought in a new one in 2022. So had a
Okay.
3-year, almost to the day, a 3-year run with the first one.
Wow.
And then the second one came in, and we've been with them for right about 3 years now.
How does that work? So you've got this other entity that has 51% control. Do they go out and say, hey, we want to find someone that'll buy us? And are they the one initiating that, or how does that work exactly?
So, I mean, it's not in a vacuum. So you're well aware.
Yeah, I mean, you're integral, obviously, to the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so you go and you hire an investment banker, and you take it to market or auction. Now, remember, I had a goal to make sure that I kept the company and kept going.
Right.
So I probably did what the private equity guys would not like you to do, and that's kind of sought out my own solutions and made sure that I had a plan and stuff too. For me, what happened was there was a company that had 350 locations. We were headed to 200. So rewind to say 2021, there was a company in the industry called Service King, and information about their debt situation started to be public. Moody's wrote an article, Wall Street Journal had an article, and knowing the business, I knew the math of, they had a due date on their debt the following summer in 2022. And I knew with the numbers that they were putting up, there was no way they were going to be able to refinance it. What I didn't know was if the PE group would write another check, but I didn't think that they would. So I basically was kind of foreseeing, it looks to me like they're heading toward debt restructuring, bankruptcy, whatever name you want to give it. Who ends up taking control if that happens? And the answer was the bondholders. Clear Lake Capital was the majority bondholder. So I reached out to Clear Lake and said, look, next year we're going to be going to market at about the same time. It looks like you're going to take control over this platform. I think we know what they're doing wrong. I think we can put it together and make a great national platform, and me and my team can run it well. We should stay in touch. And it ended up working out exactly like that. So if they tell the story today, it would sound like, yeah, Matt called me out of nowhere and said, you're going to be the dog that caught the bus. You're going to be screwed and you need me. But that's not at all how it went. But that's kind of what they said. So I had kind of that plan in place ahead of it going to auction. And then it's just a simple math problem. Was Clear Lake willing to invest and to crash at the same point as, the best offer from the market? And that's what we were able to put together. It gave me what I wanted, which was a path to keep going and grow the company much bigger. And it gave the original PE investor the payday they wanted. So it worked out great.
How do you, and if this is too confidential, feel free to just say that, but how do you ultimately get out of this in terms of, you get your cash out of this deal and when you're ready to kind of move on? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, great question. Well, number one, got to keep the money. You got to keep the company growing and create value, or I'll never get the money out. So
Right.
there is a possibility of never getting it out. If you obviously, the company that we bought, all those investors in that company lost all of what they invested. So there is that, which is why people take a little more money out than I have along the way, because there's risk in it, right? I think the honest answer is at some point, Clear Lake will want to exit, and it could look like a partial exit or a full exit. And at that time, I would still stay heavily in, but I would take something out at that point, just because.
Take something off the table. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
But that would be my plan is, whoever the investor ends up being next, take a little bit out and keep going, and at some point what happens is the company gets so big that who can buy it? And so that's why there's the public market. We don't have a goal specifically to go public, but if we get so big that another couple PE firms or PE firm couldn't do it, then that's why, then you make a plan for going public at an exit. So eventually, whether it's, at this immediate P group's exit or the next time around, there would be a public event, I would imagine, unless some gazillionaire decided that they wanted to come in and own the company.
Yeah, that was kind of one of my questions around potentially going public because you're 600 locations. You get to a point where it's like, who, really the public market is the only one that could probably sustain acquisition, if you will, of that size of an entity. Is your ultimate goal? What is your ultimate goal? Like, where do you think you can take this?
Well, I answer that in this way. So remember, I was just trying to make a living when I opened the first shop. So I never dreamed of like being this big until now. And so now I think much bigger and don't ever want to put a cap on it. And I also think in terms of like, why would I ever want to quit as like not number one? So number one in the end, we're basically the third largest in the industry with a big gap between us and number one. Number one is 3 times our size. So it would take me a good amount of time to, I think we can catch them in a 7 year window if the right things come about. So I'd love to not be done until I get us to the number one spot.
That's awesome. What's cool is there's only maybe one, maybe two, depending on how you look at it, of other CEOs doing what you do at your level, which is pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. You're one of three.
Yeah, and really, I'm the only founder in the industry of size like this, and so it's a kind of a unique thing that we pitch. Not that I'm so special, but like it's not a professional CEO ran company. Like I came up to the industry, I've done every role. I know what people on the ground floor at the shop level experience every day, and so we speak to that kind of culturally because I'm not going to come with some crazy idea to make their job harder. My whole efforts it's already hard. I'm trying to make it easier, and it's a tribal industry, and the culture matters a lot, and I get that, and I think that makes us pretty unique, and it also eliminates a lot of like makes speed to decision making, I think, just significantly faster because you get a little credibility as the founder, especially if you're operating the company well, and you can, I think, move a little freer and faster than perhaps like say a professional CEO that's really smart but new to the industry and trying to learn. It takes a couple years to get comfortable. Maybe less than that to kind of know what they're doing, but from a major decision standpoint, maybe it's a year or so before they start to get really comfortable. Where I don't have that learning curve, which is great.
Right. Hey, Matt, on that same note, a lot of times as business owners, we're this small fish and we're competing with these larger entities. And we kind of, it's a love-hate type relationship in the sense that, it's that big company, they have unlimited resources. But as a small business, I'm more nimble or I can be a higher level of customer service. How do you combat that? And what do you feel about now being, I'm sure you at some point probably felt like, these big companies are a pain in the butt. And now you're kind of part of them a little bit. How do you combat that? And what do you think about that different perspective?
Oh, that's an awesome question. Of course I did. Like I hated the big companies. And the sales pitch, of course, was, well, you can go to the big company or you can come to my shop. And, the great thing is here's my cell phone number. And if something is wrong, call me. And I'm personally going to make sure it's okay
Right.
for you. See if you can get a hold of the owner of that big company or if there even is an owner, right? Like, and so that of course was my pitch when I was small. I think the unique great thing about us is I was really small only 5 years ago. And so I haven't been the hated big company in the industry for 2 decades, and I'm still here. So trust me, I do think there's small business out there that view us as like the big company enemy, but I also have the whole dynamic of I'm one of them, and I was just one of them just a few years ago. And so that has kind of played a little bit in our favor for that dynamic is that softened it a little bit. But I'm well aware that we are a big company now, and the pitch has to change a little bit. And so now the pitch is all the things that are great about being big. And me being still here as the founder, I can still try to bring the culture and the entrepreneurial attitude and the spirit of the team to the organization, just like when we were small, although it's much harder, right, at scale. But we have that plus the benefits of being big, which is we can cultivate national relationships. We have a career path where you don't have to leave us to be able to move up and grow. And there's been a lot of excitement in the rapid growth that's allowed people to to also grow in their careers and not have to leave the company to do it. So now it's a conversation about why being big is good. And then, hey, we still have a little bit of that component that was great about being small. So I think we're in a sweet spot for another minute or two here.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
And then, hey, we still have a little bit of that component that was great about being small. So I think we're in a sweet spot for another minute or two here.
Yeah, I get it. Having your DNA as part of the organization, I'm with you all the way, because I've been in those situations where you have someone that never has been in the trenches of the business. And that's can be a hard sell with the line staff, because they're like, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about, or this lady, or whoever, whatever the gender is. But you've done it. You've breathed it, man. It's like you can probably walk into a shop and have the conversation, and you're walking out and they're like, man, this guy's credible. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I hope so. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, so I want to be respectful of your time, definitely over the time limit, as I oftentimes do. If people wanted to reach out to you, you're all over the internet. Your handle is Matt Ebert, EBERTCC.
Yes.
The main website of your organization is Crash Champions. I love that name, crashchampions.com. And then I'll, of course, put LinkedIn in the show notes to it at thinktyler.com. I would love to wrap up before we close here. If you could summarize just your career, because you are just like the epitome of a guy in the trenches that kind of just kept building and kept making things happen to get to 600 locations. I mean, I love this story. Anything you can summarize in terms of a tip for us entrepreneurially that we can apply to our own business or lives?
Sure. Can I rattle off a couple or just one?
Please, as long as you have the time.
Yeah, I think my big thing is the team matters so much. Put better people around you every chance you get. That is the key to success. I believe is the people. Cash flow matters. So if you don't make sure that you can survive a down kind of period, you're gonna be in trouble as a company. No matter how far you got to make sure that you can cash flow. And then those would be pretty obvious tips, I think. And then 3 is just dream big. I say you can't shoot for the moon and hit stars, but you can shoot for the stars and hit the moon. And so the bigger you dream and think, the bigger it can be.
Wow. Matt, you're an awesome guest. You got an awesome story. I can't thank you enough for being here today. Hope to talk to you again, probably when you're over 1,000 locations or something.
Love to.
Okay, man.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, take care. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.
So I really enjoyed that conversation with Matt. I felt he was really transparent and open about his situation, and really was open to talking about many of the challenges even now, as far as ultimately maybe getting out his investment of private equity. I would say one big thing with Matt was it wasn't really just about the size of his company that he's built, but it's the mindset that powered it. He's a founder who's never stopped learning. He stayed humble. He kept surrounding himself with people better than him in different areas. He knew when to bet big, when to pause, and how to adapt as his role evolved from a technician to a CEO, and even mixed in a lot of risk with that as he was going along. So let me end with this. Whether you're trying to scale from one shop or maybe multiple shops, or you're juggling growth with private equity partners, there's something here for everyone. Matt really covered it. I'd love, if you like this episode, to do me a favor, share it with someone else or leave me a review. Reviews really do help. So as always, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next week.
Electric